live. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Today's really exciting because we're doing a bit of all three of those in our biggest month ever. By month's end, over 60 sessions from around the world. This one's one that I'm particularly excited about because it represents something a little bit different from a group we've worked with for quite some time now. Before I introduce them, I want to go in with all our classes. We've got 6 classes joining us from across North America right now. So I want to give them a chance to do a bit of a shout out. So we've got Miss Oster's grade 4s in Spruce Grove in Alberta. Hi, guys. Hey. Hey. A lot in Alberta today. It's very exciting. We've got Miss Marquardt's grade 8s in Petawawa, Ontario. Hi, guys. Hey, I know you're still messing with mics, but you're there, you're excited, and I appreciate you guys being here. We've got Miss Catsko's grade 5s in Calgary, Alberta. Hi, guys. Hey, a lot of pink in the class. There's so many of you. I love it. All right. We've got Miss Warren's grade 4s in Hutchinson in Kansas. Hi, guys. Hey. Hey, representing the U.S. Welcome in, guys. We've got Miss Stouffer's grade 2s in Lecanto, Florida. Let me just pull them up. Hi, guys. Hi. So many excited kids today. I love it. All right. And last but not least, just joining us a second ago, we've got Miss Franz's grade 4s in Red Deer in Alberta. Hi, guys. All right. Of course, the reason you guys are all joining us today is for our speaker. So we are joined live in Banff National Park, not in an office somewhere, in the park by the mountains by Caroline Hedin. So she's an educator there. And so we've done a series of presentations on bison before, but today we're going to go on a little bit of a tour looking for them and see what we might be able to find a little bit about the amazing science that happens in the park. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Caroline. Thank you so much for joining us, and take it away. Go for it. You're good to go.
Everybody. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Thank you all for being here. We are really pumped about today. It's going to be a very special journey. So my name is Caroline Hedin. I am a conservation educator with Parks Canada right here in Banff National Park. And I'm right in front of Cascade Mountain. And today we're standing on the traditional territory of the Treaty 6, 7, and 8 First Nations. For thousands of years, they've had a very special relationship with this very place. So we thank them so greatly for sharing the land with us today. And today we're coming to you live from Banff National Park. And give me a wave if you have been to Banff National Park or any national park before.
Awesome! Tons of waves, all the waves.
Yay! Well, definitely come visit us. Banff National Park is Canada's very first national park, but it's not the last. We're part of a system of 48 national parks all across the country. If Jesse, you can pull up a map of that for a second so everyone can see.
Yeah, give me 2 quick seconds and I will bring that up for you guys. All right, let me share my screen, and our map of all the parks in Canada is right here, guys. Hopefully you guys can all see that.
And we're located in Banff right under that red circle in the Rocky Mountains here in Alberta. So hi to everyone visiting from the States today. So here in Parks Canada, we have a very special job to protect these beautiful places and all of the creatures that call it home. And today we're going to be talking about one very special creature, the bison. And Jesse, if you can pull up a picture of bison so we all know what we're talking about, because we are going to be following in the hoof steps of bison today.
All right, let's bring that up and give me 2 quick seconds. There we
go.
go.
Oh, awesome. There we go. And this is actually part 2 of our 2-part series about the return of bison to Banff National Park. If you missed part 1, you can go and stream that on the Explore YouTube channel afterwards. But the Sparks Notes version is that bison, like the ones you see in this picture, roamed this very place for 10,000 years. But 150 years ago, they disappeared and they very nearly went extinct. So we knew that we needed to bring them back. And last year we did. So Parks Canada released wild bison into the backcountry right here in Banff. So today we're gonna learn about why that is so important. We're gonna go into the field and see the kind of data that our scientists are collecting in the backcountry to monitor the herd and their impact on the ecosystem. So keep your eyes peeled, buckle up, and let's go into the field and see what signs of bison we can find. And maybe we'll get lucky and we'll actually get to see wild bison in their natural habitat. You guys ready?
We're ready. Let's do it.
Okay, let's go. Hey guys, I think I see something floating in that tree. Let's go see what it is. Oh my goodness! We found a sign of bison. You guys see this?
Yeah, very cool.
This is bison fur. So it's left here by a bison right on this branch here. I actually brought a little bit more so we can get a closer look. Look at this beautiful fur. So bison fur is really special. You can see here, it's so soft and squishy. It's like a beautiful wool sweater. So bison will grow a nice wool coat every winter, but they don't need it in the springtime. So they'll actually shed it and it will come off in giant clumps just like this one. And then birds will actually come and pick up big clumps of fur like this and use it to line their nest. And Jesse, if you could pull up a quick picture of that so you can see it in action.
I sure can. Give me 2 quick seconds and we will get that up for you guys. Bird nest lining. Yep, perfect. And there we go. Share my screen. And
so the cool thing about bison fur is that birds who grow up in a nest lined with bison fur are a lot more likely to grow up to be big birds. So you can see that bird there with a beak full of bison fur, and they'll weave that right into the nest. Pretty cool. So our scientists are actually studying the impact that the return of bison might have on bird populations here in Banff. So we'll come out to places like this every springtime when the birds are coming back during their migration, and we'll record the bird songs. So we'll come back to the same places year after year. So we'll be able to see if there's a change in what birds we're seeing, or how many birds, or where they are. So over time, we can see if bringing back bison has helped bird populations. Pretty cool. So we'll leave this fur here. Hopefully another bird can find it. And let's go see what else we can find here. You guys ready? Let's go.
we're ready. Let's do it.
Hey, do you smell that? It smells like very earthy and kind of stinky, like poop. Do you guys smell that? I think it's maybe coming from over here. Where is that coming from? Do you guys smell that? There it is. Let's go see. We found our second sign of bison. Check this thing out. This is bison poop, or bison dung, or scat as we like to call it. As you can see here, it is pretty big. So like bison fur, bison dung is really special here on the landscape, because most other animals here in the mountains leave behind scat that's pretty small and dense and doesn't really have that much nutrients left. So for example, this is a deer pellet. So as you can see, it's a lot smaller than that big bison dung, and it's pretty hard. So there's not a lot left in that one. But the bison dung is full of nutrients. So, or I'm not sure if you can see it through the camera, but we're already starting to see some beautiful new green grass pop up here. Because there's so much nutrients left in the bison dung, it's kind of like putting fertilizer on your garden. So it releases so many nutrients back into the soil, which helps all this native grass grow. Another cool thing about bison dung is it's also like an insect hotel. So bugs will come lay their eggs inside of the poop. I know, it's pretty gross. And those baby bugs will grow up inside and emerge to become adults. And then they become food as part of the circle of life for other animals, like, again, birds or amphibians. And Jesse, you have another picture of a bison scat or a bison scat with insects. So you can pull that one up.
Sure do, and we'll bring that up in just a second. Let's get this guy up. There we go. Looks like they're mating on the poo as well.
Yeah, it's pretty gross, but they love it. And you'll also see birds or other animals coming and actually eating the bugs right out of a piece of bison dung. So something else that bison dung can tell us is what bison are eating. So when we find bison dung like this in the field, we'll actually collect a sample. And that will tell us the types of plants that bison have been eating in the wild. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to take our collection bag and a glove because it's kind of gross. And we'll just get a little chunk of it here. Now we'll take this back to the lab, and then we can analyze it to see the types of species that these bison have been eating. And so far we know that it's all these beautiful mountain grasses and leafy plants like fireweed, which is a type of flower that's really pretty. So we'll take this back to the lab and see what it tells us about our Banff bison herd. So that was our second sign of bison dung. Let's see what else we can see. So when we're in the field looking for wildlife, a great way to find where they might be is to follow their pathways. So we'll look for game trails, which are look a lot like human trails. We're on one right now, but they're made by wildlife. So let's walk along here and see where it leads us. And as we're getting towards the end of a beautiful meadow like this, just take a look. This is great bison habitat. So when we get to an area like this, we'll start to look for another sign of bison, which is a bison rub tree. Now I see some trees on the edge here, and there's one right there that I think actually is a rub tree. Let's go show you. Oh my gosh, this is so neat. So take a look. We see more bison fur. We see that beautiful soft fur. And there's also this opening in the bark. So you can see some sap running here. Now, how this forms is that bison will come and rub up against whatever they can find when they have an itch. And sometimes that's a tree. Now, over time, they'll actually open up the bark and they may eventually push over the tree, or the tree might end up dying, which is bad news for the tree, but great news for all of this beautiful grassland habitat that bison and other grazers depend on, like elk or ground squirrels. And our scientists are actually measuring how bison are changing the vegetation that we're seeing here in the park. So we're using some pretty cool high-tech drone technology to do a before and after survey to see how bison are altering the vegetation that we're seeing on the landscape. So stay tuned for that one. We'll be doing more surveys in the years to come. So our staff can't be in the field all the time looking for signs like that. So we also depend on a lot of remote tools to help us monitor the bison in their natural habitat. So I have something over here that I'd like you to get to see. This here is a remote camera. This is a tool that we often use in the backcountry to monitor wildlife and especially bison. So these will be left out here for several months, and the way that they work is we'll set them up in a place where we know wildlife are going to be traveling. And when they do, they'll trigger this sensor here, and it will take a picture. And then when our staff are traveling in the backcountry, we'll come and check this camera. So what we'll do is we'll open it up. We'll check to make sure there's enough batteries. And most importantly, we'll actually change its memory card. So this memory card will hold all kinds of juicy details on the types of wildlife that are using this area, any kinds of interactions between wildlife, and how healthy the bison are. So I'm going to take this back to our office so we can analyze the photos. And Jesse, I actually sent you another card from a different camera so you can see the types of photos that we get from a remote camera.
You sure did. Let's get them up. All right. And here's a great one, a bison at night we've got. And then our second picture, we've got bison walking through the fields over here. And finally, a whole herd of bison, one that looks like he's got or two that look like they have trackers around their necks. You might be able to tell us a little bit about those too. Very cool.
Nice. So that gives us a behind the scenes look at our wildlife. Now, another remote tool we can use to track wildlife is something called telemetry. And Jesse pointed out those remote collars. It's connected to this device. So those are, before we released the herd into the wild, we gave all of the adults GPS radio collars. Now those actually help us track the bison in the wild. And the way that it works is kind of like a radio station. Each collar has its own channel. And using this device, when we're out in the field, we can actually tune in just like you would find the right music channel in your car. So we can tune into every single bison. And what we'll be looking for is kind of like a sonar sound, like beep, beep, beep. And that tells us that bison might be in the area. The louder it is, the closer they are. So because we've already seen scat, fur, and a rub tree, maybe there's bison around us. So let's fire this up and see if we hear anything.
Very cool.
Oh my gosh! You guys hear that?
We sure do.
Okay, wow, we're getting a signal already. Oh my gosh, do you guys hear that? I think the signal's coming strongest just in front of us. So let's be really quiet because they actually sound like they might be pretty close. So I'm gonna just grab my binoculars so we can get a closer look without disturbing them. Oh my God. There's bison just over there. I'm seeing a small herd and you can't see through this tiny camera, but I'll take a picture with my binoculars and they're attached to Wi-Fi. So I'll send a picture to Jesse, he'll pull it up, and then you can see what I'm seeing through the binoculars. Jesse, did you get that?
Yeah, let's get it up. Here we go, guys. Perfect. Very cool. Right. Look at that.
Amazing. So guys, can you count how many bison are in that herd? And if there are any babies? I think I might be seeing a couple.
Let's see if we can count together, guys. All right. Got a few with a few babies.
And if they're, Jesse, can you pick a classroom to tell us what they're seeing?
I sure can. Give me 2 quick seconds. All right. Let's pull up. Oh, we had a class just join us too. Hi, guys. All right. Well, let's pick up Miss Warren's class. What do you guys think? How many bison were in that picture? Don't all yell at once. 7. I heard 7. I heard 8. Did you guys say 8? 8. How many? 6. Oh, we got 6 now. It's decreasing. And how many babies? How many babies, guys? 2. All right. So somewhere between 6 and 8 with 2 babies, Carolyn.
Cool. That's what I'm seeing too. I'm seeing about 6 adults and a couple of babies. So they would have been born this past spring. Pretty neat. So whenever we're in the field, we get a visual observation like this. We'll collect some information about what we're seeing, like the number of bison, if they have any ear tags that we can see, and how healthy they are. So these guys are all looking nice and healthy. They have a good winter coat coming in. So we don't want to disturb them. So what we're going to do is we're just going to let them do their thing. We'll take a step back there, and then we can talk a bit more about it. Wow, so cool. Oh my gosh, guys, that was so neat. That was really lucky. Really cool that we got to actually make some visual observations of the herd. So way to go. You're great scientists in training. So today we got to see some pretty neat things that are happening right here in Banff. We saw some signs of bison. We saw bison fur, bison dung, a bison rub tree, and we also saw some ways that we monitor the herd in the backcountry. So remote cameras and telemetry and visual observations. So that's some of the work that our scientists are doing right now to monitor bison as they return to the landscape as a keystone species. And that basically means that they are benefiting hundreds of other species around them by creating new habitats, by providing fur for birds, by releasing nutrients back into the soil, by increasing grassland habitat. So it just feels like we're on the edge of conservation as we see all of this unfolding like this ancient dance that would have happened here for thousands of years. So we're going to be studying that, and we invite you to learn along with us. So we have a challenge for all of you, as we actually sent our scientists into the field with a camera to document their day-to-day of working with the bison. That's on our YouTube channel at Parks Canada. And our challenge for you guys is to watch all 5 of our 5-part web series. Each one's about 5 minutes long. Then pick your favorite one. You can share it on social media and tag us at Banff NP. Jesse will send this all out afterwards.
I sure will.
We'll get a scientist to get back to you with their favorite moment of working with the herd in the wild. So very, very cool. You can also follow us and the herd on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. And we also have a blog that you can follow along to. The best way to find that is just to Google Banff Bison. And Jesse, again, will send all that information out. So great, again, great job. And now let's talk a bit more about bison. What kind of questions do you guys have?
That was amazing, Carolyn. Thank you so much for all that. So before we dive in with live questions, I want to note we've got a bevy of classes watching, 11 at last count watching on YouTube Live, so a ton of people there. So if you guys want to just identify where you're joining from, pass along a question, I'll share it with Carolyn. But yes, let's dive in with our live classes. I'm going to start with Ms. Oster's class. If you guys want to come up and kick us off, go for it and take us away.
Do the moms produce milk for the babies?
Good question.
That's a great question. They do. So bison are mammals, just like us, and the cows produce milk, and the babies will nurse from their moms up to about a year, but they start eating grass within a few months of being born. So yeah, great question. So the ones that we're seeing today, they might still be drinking milk from their moms, but they're also going to be grazing some of this beautiful native mountain grass as well.
Very cool. All right, let's go to Miss Marquardt's class. I know you guys are having some tech issues earlier, but I think you're entirely gone. So they have that much tech issues. Okay, we'll go to a third class then. Miss Catsko's class. If you guys want to ask a question, come on up. Right.
Hi, I'm in grade 5 from Edgemont School, and my question is, what was the hardest part about transferring the bison to the Banff Park?
Yeah.
Oh, good question. Oh my gosh. The hardest part was that there is no road access to where we release them. So we actually had to load the bison into special crates, and you can learn all about this in part 1 of our 2-part series with Explore. Into these special shipping containers, and then we actually had a helicopter come and pick every container up, fly it over the mountains and into the heart of the Rocky Mountains. So it was about a 20-minute flight. Bison often don't fly, but these ones had their chance to get a mountaintop view. And that area has no road access still. So when we do go out to monitor the herd, we're looking at about a 2-day hike or ski or horseback ride to be in the core of their habitat to monitor the herd in the wild.
Super cool. And we'll pass along the link to the past video too, where you can see a bit of the flying bison in action, because it's very neat. All right, Miss Warren's class, if you guys have a question, come on up.
Hi, my name's Mason. I wanted to know, how many buffalo have you ever seen?
Like in my whole life? Oh my gosh. I have seen, I'm so fortunate because most people don't get to see bison anymore like we used to. If you went back 200 years and you looked out your window, you might see a herd of 100,000 bison, which is a lot more than we can count. I've personally seen hundreds of bison, especially down in Montana at a place called the American Prairie Reserve, where they have quite a large herd, and up at another Parks Canada National Park at Elk Island National Park, which is where we got our bison from to start our project here in Banff, and they protect about 1,000 bison. And that's just outside of Edmonton. So for all those Alberta schools, if you do want to see bison, they do field trips there as well. So you might be able to actually go there and see bison for yourself. Because our bison are pretty out there, and we were just so lucky to be able to see them today.
Outstanding. We want to pass along a question from a group on YouTube. So Miss Camplin's grade 4 class in Guelph, Ontario wanted to ask, what provinces do you see bison in?
Ooh, you can see, we have several parks across the country where you can see wild bison. So in Alberta, or in so many places now, here in Banff, Elk Island, like I mentioned, Wood Buffalo National Park, Rocky Mountain House National Historic Site. We also have in Saskatchewan, Prince Albert National Park. Grasslands has a growing herd of wild plains bison. There's bison in Manitoba. And for Parks Canada sites, I think that's the most western or most eastern sides. But there's also lots of ranches that raise bison all across the country too. And lots of parks down in the United States too, for all of you joining us from the US today.
Excellent. All right. Miss Stouffer's class, if you guys have a question, come on up.
What is a bison's most dangerous predator?
Ooh, well, humans, most of all, humans and bison have coexisted for thousands and thousands of years. So humans are still a formidable prey for predator for bison. And here in Banff, we might also see wolves. So wolves are a historical predator of bison. But it's interesting because it takes wolves some time to learn how to hunt bison, because bison haven't been on this landscape for about 150 years. We do have active wolf packs here. So we're going to be monitoring to see how long it takes them to learn how to hunt bison like they would have done for thousands of years. And in other reintroductions, it's taken between 3 years and 20 years for wolves to relearn how to hunt bison as prey. So pretty cool. We'll keep you posted.
Very cool. All right, online, Mr. Hengelbrock's grade 7s in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania wanted to ask, why did you have to stay so far away from the bison? When you're using the binoculars, you're really far away. Is there a reason you need to stay away?
Awesome. That is such a perfect question. So we want to make sure that we keep wildlife wild. So a key way you can do that is by giving them space. So if you can imagine if someone came up to you and got all close to you, it might make you really uncomfortable and you might want to get away. So because this is a protected area and a sanctuary for wildlife like bison, we want to make sure that they're able to do their business without us getting in the way.
Cool. All right. Oh, Caroline, can we still hear you? Yes, maybe? Oh, she cut out for just a second. Let's see if we can get her back. Sometimes when you're doing things from the middle of the field at the base of mountains, the connection dies for a second, but we'll see if we can get her back in. Oh, Caroline, can you hear me?
Hi. Okay, perfect.
Oh.
I think we had some weird internet glitch there.
Perfect. It's back. It's nothing like internet in the bush. That's the best kind.
Hey,
All right.
to answer you, I don't know where you last.
No, you were
me.
perfect. I was just about to go to another question anyway, and then you cut out. So we're perfect. I'll just go to their question.
Great. Awesome.
All right. So Miss Francis' class in Red Deer, if you guys have one, come on up.
How many bison are there in Banff?
Ooh.
That's a good question. So we initially brought in 16 to start our herd. As of a few months ago, we had 35, 36. So we have somewhere in that ballpark, but we don't know for sure since they are out there interacting with wolves. The herd is kind of split into two. So we try our best to keep our tabs on them, but they are wild. So we don't know where they all are at any given time, but it's somewhere in the mid-30s.
All right. And then we had a class join us about halfway through, and I'm really glad they did. So St. Benedict School in Calgary, if you guys have a question, come on up.
How do the bisons migrate in the winter? How do they survive?
Yeah.
Ooh, you guys have so many great questions. You're all hired. So bison actually evolved during the Ice Age. They are built for winter. And if you remember that bison fur that we looked at earlier, this is something that helps them survive the winter. So they are prepared with a big, warm, full fur coat. And they actually will use their big horns to dig through the snow to get at the grass that's frozen underneath. So they're totally self-sufficient during the winter. They just dig for grass, kind of like eating a granola bar or a fruit roll-up. The grass still has all of its nutrients that it would have in the spring or summer. It's just dried and maybe not as tasty. But they were in the wild all last winter. They all survived and did really well. So we're hoping for the same thing for this winter too.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to take two quick ones from YouTube as they're really fast. So Miss Holmes, grade 2s in Thunder Bay, Ontario, wanted to ask, why do bison stay in groups?
So bison are herd animals. So especially for the mamas and the babies, it's kind of like elephants. They'll all stick together. And that's for a few reasons. One, for company, because they want to be together and they're very social animals. So moms will stay with their babies and their sisters, and they'll all stay in a group together. But sometimes you'll have males that will go off on their own. So they're not always in a group, but for the young animals and the females who are a bit smaller than the males, it's safety in numbers. So if there are wolves around, they want to stay close together so that they're less likely to get eaten. and they can fight back together and protect all the babies if there's a pack of wolves kind of sniffing around. So that's some of the reasons why a bison will travel together in a group.
Excellent. And you sort of hinted at this in that answer, but Miss Peloso's grade 2-3s in Guelph, Ontario wanted to ask, what do bison use their horns for?
Oh my goodness, so many things. So both males and females have horns. They'll keep them for their whole life. So it's not like an antler, like a deer or an elk would have, that they actually will lose and regrow every single year. So their horns are pretty sharp, and they'll use them for a few things. Like I mentioned before, they'll use them to dig through the snow in the winter to access the grass underneath. They'll use it for defense against predators, so against wolves or cougars or bears, people. And they'll also use it to fight each other. So especially males will duke it out during the mating season, which happens in the summer and early fall, to compete for females. So they use them for a few different things. And if you want to see a horn close up, you can rewatch episode 1, and we showed you really, really close up what a horn really looks like.
Very cool. All right, let's dive back in with our live classes with the second round of questions. So Miss Oster's class, if you guys want to kick us off for round 2, come on up.
Okay, I was wondering, how do you weigh the bison?
Well, what we do is we pick them up and we stand on a scale. I'm kidding, you definitely couldn't do that. An adult male bison can weigh a metric ton, which is really heavy. They are North America's largest land mammal, so you do not want to be picking them up. So what we do is, if we are moving bison, like at Elk Island National Park, they have what's called a bison handling facility, which is kind of like a corral. And at one point, they have to go through a narrow opening, and we actually have a scale built into the ground. So they just have to walk on it. We don't have to lift them up or anything. And that scale on the ground can tell us how much a bison weighs.
Very cool. All right, let's turn to Miss Katsko's class. If you guys have a second question, come on up.
When did you start liking bisons? And
how did you get involved in Banff National Park and other parks?
Yeah, nice.
Great. Well, this could be you one day. I have been obsessed with bison. They're my favorite animal for about 10 years, so probably as old as you are. I fell in love with bison because I started working at a place called Elk Island National Park. That's where we got our bison to start this project. And there's bison everywhere there. So I've never lived so closely with bison before. And the more I learned about them, they're so attached to the history of Canada and Indigenous peoples and conservation. There's just so many cool pieces around them that I feel like I'm learning more every single day about why bison are so cool and so important. And then I've just been following the bison. I've worked in several different parks that protect bison, and that brought me to where I'm standing today talking about bison. So I encourage you to learn more too, because I promise you, you're going to become a bison nerd just like me.
Especially after all the videos we're going to send you at the end of this. It's the next 10 hours of your day are just bison. Awesome, guys. Let's go to Miss Warren's class. If you guys have another question, come on up.
Hi, I'm Jenna. I was wondering if you study any other animals or just bison?
Yeah.
Well, here in the park, we study a huge range of animals, from tiny little snails to bison to songbirds, wolves, and bears. We've got our fingers on the pulse of this integrated ecosystem here in Banff. I personally am focused solely on bison and the creatures that are related to it. So as we mentioned before, bison help out birds, they help out bugs, they help bears and wolves. So even if you just study one animal here, they're part of a network that's connected to all the species that call Banff home.
Yeah, very cool. One of the parts of your presentation that was really neat was showing the remote cameras. And so one of the questions from a group Miss Svegel's class, grade 4s in Toronto, Ontario, wanted to ask is, how many of these remote cameras do you have, Carolyn?
Ooh, we use remote cameras for many different projects here to monitor wildlife throughout the park. And for bison specifically, I think right now we have 5 cameras live. I can't speak for the other cameras, probably somewhere around 40 or 50 cameras throughout the park. I could be like, that's kind of the ballpark. And we use them for different research projects to teach us about different parts of Banff's ecosystems.
Very cool. All right, let's take the last few questions. So Miss Stover's class, if you guys have another one, come on back up. And yeah, go for it.
Hi, my name is Carson. What's the difference between a bison and a buffalo?
Ah, I'm glad we got that brought up. Awesome.
Okay, well, for the bison we're talking about today, you can also call them buffalo. They're the same thing. But bison is the scientific name that we use here in Parks Canada. But you're not wrong if you call them buffalo. That's the common name for them. But there are buffalo that you can't call bison. So there's the distant cousins of the bison, the water buffalo and the Cape Horn buffalo that you couldn't call bison. If that makes sense, there are differences, but for plains bison, you can call them buffalo. Buffalo, 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 bison, bison, bison. That was a confusing sentence.
Awesome. All right, Miss Francis' class, come on up, guys.
Do bison sleep standing or laying?
Ah, interesting question.
Ooh, so I'm sure you guys have heard of cows or horses sleeping while they stand up. Bison, they don't sleep all night, but they actually will lie down and tuck themselves up. And they're what's called ruminants. So if you've heard that a cow has 4 stomachs, bison kind of do too. They have different chambers, and they basically digest their food and really try to squeeze all the nutrients out of that. And sometimes that means that they actually kind of puke it back up again and chew it again. It's called chewing your cud. So every few hours, they will curl up on the ground. They'll happily chew their cud and take a nap. And then they'll wake up and keep eating. And they'll do that 24 hours a day. So they don't have a bedtime like you or me. They'll have naps throughout the day because they need to eat so much as North America's largest land mammal.
Outstanding. All right, we're going to take one more question from a class, and then we'll do a wrap up with you, Carolyn. So yeah, St. Benedict School, if you guys have a second question, go for it. Come on up, guys.
How long does it take for a bison to finish their migration?
Well, here in Banff, that's a hard question to answer, and one that we're looking at answering right now. So if you remember those collars that I told you about that we use to locate the bison, using that and our remote cameras, we're actually trying to piece together how bison move across the landscape here in Banff. Because they were missing for so long, so about 150 years, before this park was even created. So we have a lot to learn about where bison go from season to season. Do they have a winter migration? What kind of habitats do they like to spend time in? So we're actually actively looking at answering all of those questions because we don't know. It's really a period of discovery. And once we find out, we'll let you know.
All right. And with that said, Carolyn, that was such a fantastic presentation. Our first one live from the field with you guys. You've already shared a lot of things where kids can learn more, so we're going to pass along all those Parks Canada resources to them and links to our past videos. Is there anything else you want to share and leave us off with on exciting bison stuff?
Go bison! Yes, please follow the herd, learn more, fall in love with our Banff bison, and follow them as they return to this incredible place So again, do follow us on our web series, on Facebook, Twitter, and our Bison blog. And those are things that you can bring into the classroom to keep learning about what's happening right here in Canada's first national park.
Outstanding. All right. So what we do at the end of every hangout, you know this, Carolyn, I'm going to demute everyone's microphone. And so boys and girls in all the classrooms, if you guys could join me in saying a huge thank you to Carolyn and the team at Banff National Park. You guys are all now demuted. Go right ahead. Thank you so much. Awesome. Thank you so much to all our classes. We appreciate you guys being here. Do look for that link for more resources soon. And Carolyn, thank you so much for joining us today. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you, everybody. See you soon.